Pick up a bottle of non-dairy coffee creamer and read the allergen line at the bottom of the ingredient panel. On a great many of them it says, "Contains milk." That is not a mistake, and nobody is breaking a rule. Non-dairy is a labeling term, not a description of contents. A product can carry it while containing sodium caseinate, which is a protein derived from milk. The allergen declaration exists precisely because the front of the bottle would otherwise mislead someone with a dairy allergy into a hospital. That contradiction, printed on the same label, is the honest summary of this entire category. 10 things in the creamer aisle worth understanding, and 4 that are genuinely clean. Number 1 is in tens of millions of American refrigerators and is, by weight, closer to a liquid confection than to anything resembling cream. The one that surprised me is number 7, where a number printed as 0 is legally allowed to be something other than 0. Quick note first. Everything here comes from federal labeling regulations, additive rulings, and the ingredient panels printed on the products. I am describing disclosure and regulation, not accusing any company of a crime. First, what these products actually are. Coffee creamer is not cream that had the dairy removed. It is an emulsion built from scratch. Water, a sugar, a fat, and a system of emulsifiers and stabilizers that hold the fat and water together, so the whole thing pours white and does not separate in hot coffee. That is genuinely difficult chemistry, and the products do it well. Cream curdles in acidic coffee. Creamer does not, because it was engineered not to. What you are buying is a performance specification rather than a food, and every ingredient below exists to hit that specification cheaply and shelf-stably. A short history, because this category was invented rather than discovered. Powdered coffee whitener arrived in American kitchens in the early 1960s, sold on convenience. It needed no refrigeration, it never soured, and it survived a desk drawer indefinitely. That was a genuine advance for offices, diners, and anywhere a refrigerator was inconvenient. The liquid version followed, and with it, the flavor explosion. Hazelnut, French vanilla, caramel. Seasonal varieties that arrive every autumn. Somewhere in that expansion, the product's job quietly changed. It stopped being a substitute for cream and became a sweetened flavoring that happens to be white. That shift explains the pricing. A whitener competes with milk on price. A dessert flavoring competes with nothing, because there is no reference point, and the bottle can be priced on what the experience is worth, rather than on what the contents cost. Number 10. The word non-dairy itself. Start where the confusion begins. Non-dairy, in labeling terms, does not mean free of milk-derived ingredients. Sodium caseinate appears in many of these products, and it comes from milk. The regulation requires the allergen statement, so the information is there, but it sits in small type at the bottom, underneath a front panel that says non-dairy in large friendly letters. If you avoid dairy by choice, you may not care. If you avoid it because of an allergy, that gap is the difference between a coffee and an emergency. Number 9. Corn syrup solids as the first or second ingredient. Turn the bottle and read the order. On many standard creamers, a sugar, usually corn syrup solids or plain sugar, appears immediately after water. Ingredients are listed by weight. So a product marketed as a coffee whitener is, by mass, mostly water and sugar. with a small amount of oil. The whitening is a visual effect achieved by emulsified fat scattering light, not by any substantial quantity of a dairy-like ingredient. Number 8. Flavored creamers and the sugar arithmetic. Flavored versions typically carry around 5 grams of sugar per tablespoon. That is the number on the panel, and it looks modest. Now consider the serving. A tablespoon is 15 milliliters, which is a small splash. Most people pour considerably more, and a generous pour of 3 or 4 tablespoons puts you at 15 to 20 grams of sugar before you have eaten anything. That is a soft drink's worth of sugar, arriving in a cup nobody counts. Number 7. 0 grams trans fat. That is not necessarily zero. Here is the one that surprised me, and it is a rule rather than a trick. Federal labeling permits a product to declare 0 grams of trans fat when it contains less than half a gram per serving. With a serving defined as 1 tablespoon, a creamer can carry a measurable amount of trans fat per serving and still print 0. Context matters here, and I want to be accurate. Partially hydrogenated oils, the main industrial source of trans fat, had their approved status revoked and were phased out of the American food supply, so modern creamers are formulated with other oils. But mono and diglycerides, which appear in nearly all of these products as emulsifiers, are not counted as fat for labeling purposes at all, and can contribute small amounts of trans fat depending on how they were made. The declaration is legal and accurate under the rule. It simply is not the same claim as the absence of the thing. Number 6. Hydrogenated and highly refined oils as the fat base. The fat in most creamers is vegetable oil, commonly soybean, palm, or coconut oil, often modified to behave predictably. Palm oil deserves a specific mention because it is chosen for texture. It is semi-solid at room temperature, which gives body without dairy fat. It is not a health villain in the way it is sometimes portrayed, but it is a refined tropical oil selected for functional performance and cost, sitting in a product priced as a premium coffee accessory. Number 6.5. On titanium dioxide, because people ask about it. Some whitening products have historically used titanium dioxide as a colorant to boost opacity. European regulators withdrew its approval as a food additive following a safety reassessment that could not rule out genotoxicity concerns, while American regulators have continued to permit it within limits. I raise it not to alarm you, but because it illustrates something structural. 2 competent regulatory bodies looking at the same compound and reaching different conclusions. If you want to avoid it, the ingredient list will tell you. Most modern creamers achieve whiteness through emulsified fat rather than added colorant, so its presence is worth checking rather than assuming. Number 5. The emulsifier and stabilizer stack. Read the back half of the ingredient list and you will find some combination of dipotassium phosphate, mono and diglycerides, sodium stearoyl lactylate, carrageenan, cellulose gum, and polysorbate. Each has a job. Dipotassium phosphate stops the creamer curdling when it meets hot acidic coffee. The emulsifiers keep oil and water combined. The gums provide the thickness your mouth reads as richness. None of these is dangerous at the quantities involved, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. What they tell you is compositional. The mouthfeel you associate with cream is being produced by a stabilizer system rather than by fat from milk. You are tasting engineering. Number 4. Powdered creamers. The powdered version strips the pretense away entirely. A typical panel reads corn syrup solids, hydrogenated vegetable oil, and sodium caseinate, followed by anti-caking agents and flavorings. That is sugar, oil, and a milk protein, dried. It keeps for a very long time, it costs very little, and it dissolves on contact. As a shelf-stable convenience item for a workplace or a camping trip, it does exactly what it is meant to. It simply has almost nothing to do with cream, and its per-ounce price rarely reflects that. Number 3. Sugar-free and zero-sugar versions. These swap sugar for sucralose, acesulfame potassium, or sugar alcohols, and keep everything else. The sugar reduction is real, but the oil, the emulsifiers, the stabilizers, and the flavorings all remain, and the product is frequently marketed with health-adjacent language that the formulation does not support. Removing sugar from a highly processed emulsion produces a highly processed emulsion without sugar. It does not produce a clean product. Number 2. Plant-based creamers with long labels. Oat, almond, and coconut creamers now occupy the premium end of the case, and the assumption is that they are simpler. Many are not. Read 1. Alongside the oat base, you will commonly find added oils, usually sunflower or canola, plus gums, dipotassium phosphate, and a sweetener. The plant milk is the base, but the same functional system has been built on top of it because the same physics applies. A plant milk alone will also split in hot coffee. There are genuinely short-label plant creamers, and they are worth seeking out. The point is that plant-based is not itself evidence of simplicity, and the price premium frequently buys the marketing rather than the formulation. Number 1. The flavored creamer in the giant bottle. The best-selling format, and the one where every technique above appears at once. Water and sugar leading the list. A refined oil, the full stabilizer stack, artificial or natural flavorings, a color, and a front panel promising a dessert. Look at it by proportion. At roughly 5 grams of sugar per 15 milliliters, a flavored creamer is around a third sugar by weight. That is confectionery arithmetic. If you poured it over ice cream, nobody would blink. I want to be direct rather than preachy. If this is what makes your morning coffee something you look forward to, that is a completely reasonable trade, and a video is not going to improve on your own judgment about your own breakfast. What is worth knowing is only which product you are holding. A sweetened, flavored, oil-based emulsion, priced as though it were a dairy product. Before the 4 that are clean, here is a test that takes 10 seconds. Read the first 3 ingredients. If water and a sugar lead, and an oil follows, you have the standard formulation regardless of what the front says. Then check where it is stored in the shop. Shelf-stable creamers that sit unrefrigerated for months are telling you something structural about their composition, because actual dairy cream cannot do that without ultra-high temperature processing and sealed packaging. One more, at home. Pour a little into a glass of cold water. A dairy product disperses and clouds the water evenly. A heavily emulsified creamer tends to hold together longer and coat the glass, because the stabilizer system is doing precisely what it was designed to do. Now the 4 that are actually clean. Real 1. Half and half, or single cream with a 2-ingredient label. Milk and cream. That is the whole panel. It curdles occasionally in very hot or very acidic coffee. And that inconvenience is the entire reason the category above exists. Warming it slightly first, or adding coffee to the cream, rather than cream to the coffee, largely solves it. Real 2. Whole milk. Unfashionable, cheap, and a single ingredient. It delivers less richness than cream, which is a preference question rather than a quality one. For most people, milk plus a genuinely good coffee beats a mediocre coffee plus a flavored emulsion. Real 3. Short-label plant milks, ideally barista versions. Look for oats or almonds, water, and salt, with as little else as possible. Barista formulations exist because they steam and resist splitting better, and they usually achieve that with a small amount of oil and 1 gum rather than the full stack. 3 or 4 ingredients is achievable in this aisle. Real 4. The one you make. Warm milk or cream with a vanilla pod, a cinnamon stick, or a strip of orange peel, and keep it in a jar in the fridge for a few days. It takes about 5 minutes, costs a fraction of a flavored bottle, and contains exactly what you put in it. I recognize this is the answer nobody wants in a video about which bottle to buy. It is also the only version where you decide the sugar. There is one more comparison worth making directly, because it settles the value question. Take the price per liter of a flavored creamer and set it beside the price per liter of whole milk or half and half. In most stores, the creamer costs substantially more, sometimes several times more, while being composed largely of water, sugar, and refined oil, ingredients that are individually among the cheapest in the supermarket. That gap is not a scandal, and manufacturers are entitled to charge what people will pay. But it is worth seeing clearly. You are paying a premium not for the ingredients, which are inexpensive, and not for the dairy content, which is minimal or absent. You are paying for the flavor system and the convenience of a product that will not curdle. If that trade is worth it to you, it is worth it. Just make it knowingly. Your aisle routine takes 10 seconds. Ignore the front panel entirely, including non-dairy, natural, and every dessert name. Read the first 3 ingredients. Check the sugar per serving and multiply it by how much you actually pour. Look at the allergen line if avoiding dairy matters to you medically. Here is the honest close. None of this is a scandal. Every ingredient in these products is permitted, disclosed, and safe at the quantities used. Coffee creamer solves a real problem. Cream curdles, milk is thin, and a stable, shelf-friendly whitener that tastes of hazelnut is a genuine convenience that people enjoy. What is worth refusing is the framing. A sweetened oil emulsion sold under the word cream at a price that borrows dairy's premium, while the allergen line quietly notes that it contains milk anyway. That is a lot of work being done to avoid saying what the product is. Read the first 3 ingredients. That single habit tells you everything the front of the bottle was designed to obscure.